Right. So this is where generally a service-oriented architecture is, because service-oriented architecture, basically it's a kind of architectural style which normally we are using in application development, especially whenever we are implementing web services, all that. Right. So before I'm getting into service-oriented architecture, let me give you an understanding of web services. What exactly web services will be of. I'm not going in detail. Web services detailed part will be discussed later. But in what
Okay.
way service-oriented architecture will be built in web services is what we are discussing now. So if you are taken web service as a concept, for
Okay.
example, we are developing, uh, let's say, for example, we are developing an healthcare management system. Okay, for example, right? So if you are developing an healthcare application, normally what is that we have to do? So healthcare application, either it can be patient management, etc. So for that, you required multiple applications to be designed. So one is a web application where people can access it through the system, laptop or a
UI.
desktop,
Okay.
right? So this is one
Okay.
thing. Second,
Okay.
this healthcare application can be used using mobiles also, even tabs, right? So different things. So the application as well as the services are remains constant and same. But whenever we are working on the application, especially, there are different applications we want to use, like web application as separate, mobile application it can be, right? So it can be different applications we want to develop. So, like it can be desktop applications, it can be web applications, it can be mobile, right? It can be tablet, all that. Now, let's say, for example, we want to implement web application or we want to implement desktop of any other application. Being into application development, what is that we have to do? We have to write a business logic for all these. Am I right or not? Right? We need to write
Yes.
an exclusive business
Yes.
logic for all the applications. How many number of applications do we have? We need to develop number of applications, means number of business logics and all, everything will be required for us to implement. But in practical reality, if it is confined for one or two, which is an excuse, can be done, right? So because the amount of time you are spending will also be limited in terms of the duration, so that can be done. But whereas when it comes to the larger extent, if you have seen this from the context of applications which has long and ongoing projects, because there will be some applications we develop, especially healthcare, banking, financial services, insurance based applications. We require different applications for users to use this application according to the flexibility what they want them to implement. So what will happen here? This is where generally implementation of business logic leads to complexity, because the amount of time will be more to use it. At the same time, a number of people has to work on that, right? So this is a regular practice. So hence, what is that we have to do? In spite of writing a business logic for all the applications, please mute
Okay.
yourself. Please mute yourself. I think there is some noise coming. Please don't mind. Please mute yourself. If you have any questions, you can ask.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. So we need to write a business logic, everything as separate. Now, in spite of that, what we can do, we can we can develop a web services for each and required features, whatever is needed for us. So that what can be done, so that these will be used by the services, whatever we have used by the services and all, everything will be placed in a centralized location. So from there, generally, whenever an application is being developed by the developers and all, everything, so they can use it, they can set C services and all, everything, and they can use these applications in the they can use these services, web services in their respective applications, so that you don't require to create business logics n number of times. Instead of creating a business logic n number of times for different applications, it's always advisable for us to create a web service so that this can be accessed by the development team in regular intervals. This is where generally enterprise service bus is comes into picture, because whatever the server we are consuming with communications and all, so this communication system, all these things will happen through ESB. This is where generally enterprise service bus come into picture. Understood? Clear, Shivpriya, right? So this is where generally the concept of web services come into picture. Now, in reference to the service-oriented architecture. So what is service-oriented architecture? Because service-oriented architecture is one of the software style which normally we include whenever we are working on the web services. Let me write down on the Word document on the page. I'll write down here. If you want, you can make a note of it. Okay. You can make a note of it. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So web services is the one which is required for a development team to make use of using this in different applications in spite of developing a business logic for each application. For each application. If we use different, if you use business logic for different applications all the time, the amount of effort to develop will be more to the development team. This results in taking more time for development. Understood? Clear, Shivpriya, right? So the reason we develop a web service for each and every required features. Now, I'll give you an example to you. Let's say, for example, we are developing a patient management system. Okay, for example. Name of the application is, for example, patient management system or healthcare management, whatever it is, right? So patient management system. Okay. Now, if you have seen this patient management system, this patient management system, as far as the software of patient management system is concerned, normally we have different applications we have to develop. We need to develop a desktop application. Next, we need to develop a web application. Next, we have to develop a mobile application. We have to develop a tablet application. So these are the different applications we have to develop. So for all this development, for all these applications, what we have to do now, we have to create a different business logics, which takes more time. That's what I said in the beginning. So instead of that, what we can do, so that what we can do, we develop web services. So this web services has an advantage where, so whatever the features, right? For example, there are features, right? So let's say what are the features here? For example, searching of the patient, right? This is one feature. Maybe schedule appointments, right? That can be run second. Next, for example, prescribing medicines. Okay. For example, order lab tests. right? So these are the different features which we are developing under patient management system. Now, whenever we are going to develop these features and all, what is that required here? So if you are creating a web services for the required features, let's say that searching for patient, we are creating a web services. Like that, if you are creating a web services for each and every service or the feature, whatever we required, what will happen then? Then we have to place these services. We have to place these services So we have to place these services on a centralized database or a centralized location, I can say, right? So from here, so what developers do from here, different application developers may use of these services while they are working on their applications. Okay, this is what generally on a high level note, which normally we call it as web services transfer. Okay, this is a high level understanding which I'm going to provide you here, not the detailed part. Detailed part I'll discuss in coming times, right? Because now our focus is on service oriented architecture. Now here is a question next, right? So what service oriented architecture stands for and what is service oriented architecture? So why are we going to use service-oriented architecture in web services? Because what web services characteristics are? Web services characteristic is to reduce the implementation of business logic for multiple applications. So that web service creation of web service is what generally the logic behind web services. Now, service-oriented architecture is one kind of software design. Wherever the services we want to provide, those can be provided to other components based on the kind of application components what normally we have. Now, so here if you have seen service-oriented architecture as an example. So service-oriented architecture is the one, it's a software style it's a software style design where services are provided to the other components by application the components, right? So this is where generally service-oriented architecture coming to picture. That's the reason why whenever we are working on service-oriented architecture in the real world, service-oriented architecture implementations we are doing majority and times of whenever we are working on the web services, because service-oriented architecture majorly defines a general way to a software component where we can use different reusabilities using the interfaces, all that. So this is where generally reusable code come into picture. Means whenever you want to use the code multiple number of times, reusable of the code, which generally happens especially whenever we are implementing service oriented architecture, right? So this is what generally SOA stands for. So when we are working on application development, it's always important for us to, when there is a need of developing different applications for a single project, right? So multiple applications we are developing to widen the services of the customer, whatever they want to use. This service oriented architecture is something essentially important, right? So this is where generally service oriented architecture come into picture. Right, so reusability of the code is what generally service-oriented architecture stands for. Now, what are the different patterns we have in service-oriented architecture? Generally, patterns of service-oriented architecture will be categorized into 4 different platforms. The first one is called people, right? So people is the first one. because service-oriented architecture implementation will be done by the people, means who are the decision makers. Decision makers, it can be a technical team or anyone. So normally these people wants to use this service-oriented architecture. So when we are talking about the patterns of service-oriented architecture, generally people are the one, means people means technical team, I mean to say, responsibility who are responsible to take decisions and etc. all that, right? So this is point number one. Point number two, service-oriented architecture patterns will also be depending on the process. What is process here? Because if you have developed an application, what are all is combined of application? Application is combination of two things. One is business functionality. Second is technical implementation. So aligning both IT and business is what generally we have to do. Let's say we are going to develop a point of sale system. Or what is point of sale system? Point of sale system is a billing system used in the retail store. Whenever we go to the retail shop, we buy the products. Against to that, we go to the billing counter and the billing will be paid, right? So that's what the concept of billing. And whatever the billing system we see in the stores and all, this is where generally we call it as point of sale system. Now, if you want to implement a point of sale system, being a technical person, we always see what sort of hardware and software infrastructure is essentially required for us to develop it, right? That's what usually our process and our perception was. But end of the day, when your application will be successful, as long as it reaches to the business goals and objectives of the customer, then only your application will have a validity. Otherwise, your application doesn't have any validity. Am I right or not? Swajyoti, listening?
Yes, right.
Okay, right. So there is where generally the process come into picture. So what is the process here? Both combining both IT and as well as business. What is business here? Let's say point of sale system is a billing system using by the stores. Now they have two different problems. For example, what are those problems? One is system performance and the second is data centralization. So what is system performance? System performance means the existing applications which customer using at this point in time was very old. So what they want to do, they want to upgrade their systems to the next level so that whatever the lines of services as well as the people who are coming to the stores will be used by these people effectively, right? So this is where generally they are facing the problem with system performance. Why? Because if system performance is not good, what will happen? It result in delay in billing. If billing is delayed, what will happen? Automatically it impacts on the sales of the customer, because standing on queues for a long time may feel frustrated by the customer. So that customer, there is a possibility customer can go away, right? So this is where generally aligning with business and as well as IT operations is what we have to be known with. So whenever we are talking about the patterns, it's not only the people, whoever is in the role of decision making, all that, but it's always important for us to understand the process. But do remember, this process must be combining IT and business both, right? So IT and business, these are the two operations which they have to be taking into consideration. Point number three, service-oriented architecture patterns are also related on the platform. So why platform related? Because unless until if you don't have a platform to develop the application, there is a possibility in terms of the operational inefficiencies might be taken place over a period of time. So whenever the application is not so effective, assume that, right? So assume that whenever the application is not so effective in terms of the usage is concerned, automatically that impacts on the services what customer is using in a quality manner. Means, for example, instead of taking 5 minutes, it is taking 20-30 minutes, for example, for every business activity. What will happen? The productivity of an individual will come down in the organizational level. So whenever you are going to develop service-oriented architectures, it's always important for us to understand about the kind of platform which really increases the operational efficiency here. This is where generally concept of platform come into picture. The next fourth one is called practice. Practice means there must be a practiced methodology which we have to be followed. Assume that, for example, you want to develop an application. I'll give you, this is my question to you, please answer. Let's say, for example, you are developing an application. Assume that you guys have understood the requirements well in advance and you want to develop the application on a high level note. Now, being a team, being a technical team, by combining both development team, testing team, user interface designers, right? So database team, architects, all this put together. My question to you is, if you want to develop the application, what is that the first thing you want to know? What is the first thing you want to get clarity of? Which one you want to get the clarity? Where you want to get the clarity first?
I want to get clarity on what are the inputs needed.
Those
and
are all
what is
there.
the
Those are
output?
there. Those are there. You're talking about
Okay.
requirements, right? So input means requirements you're asking.
Yeah,
Okay,
requirements
were
gathering.
there. Okay.
Okay.
Requirements were there. Requirements were there. Apart,
Requirements are there. Apart
yes,
from that, the technology stack which supports
which supports
all
application to
the
develop.
to develop.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, fine. That was also there. Apart,
First,
requirements are needed, as you said, accepted. Second,
Okay.
apart from the requirements, what technology stack is required that you want to know? Because the
Yes.
configuration of the application, what again that depends on whether you are developing application from the scratch, or it depends on the legacy applications you are transforming from legacy application to the new application, that will be decided. Okay, that is there. Apart,
But
what else is required?
what else means? First we will do some pseudo, some like
Prototyping, you are asking.
prototyping.
Okay, that is there.
Pseudo small applications.
Okay, on what basis this prototype will be decided? Here is a question to you. So if you want to develop a prototype, are you developing prototype on your own? Is that you are doing it directly of yours?
No, we are not doing. Generally, technical architects they will do. Or
Okay. So for that, what is required? So if you want to perform all these, being a team, I'm asking to you, right? It's not something
okay.
that I'm saying that it is your role, right? So as you guys were
Okay.
involved,
We
so
need like one process, like we need some team like development, testing,
okay.
QA.
On what basis? On what
PA.
basis this team will be decided by you? What is the parameter for that? You came to the point now.
Yeah.
Because as you're saying, there is a team required. Am I right?
Yeah.
There is a
Yes,
team
yes.
required.
Team
So on what
required.
basis this team will be decided by you?
On what basis means what are the aware of the knowledge of the team?
On what basis?
How much they are?
On
They
what
will help.
basis? On what basis knowledge will be knowledge, team size and all everything will be decided? What are the parameters for that?
She's like
Parameters.
parameters means
Parameters,
like
nothing but the kind of methodology we are using.
methodology.
Am I right or not?
Okay.
Right? See, for example, you got a
Okay.
customer, right? You got a customer who is
Okay.
expecting you to develop a banking application. Okay, a banking customer.
Okay.
Now, if customer has given you the requirements and customer is ensuring you that no changes in requirements taken place will happen further. If this was the condition customer has told you. So what customer has said, requirement I have given, I want you to develop the application and I'm assuring you that I am not going to change any requirements further. Okay, next. Apart from that, what customer has told you is, customer is told you that I am not going to ask you any application delivery as well as releases and all everything in between. I want you to develop the whole application and provide it to me. That's what customer has told. Understood, Shivpriya, right? So,
yes,
for example, if this is the case, so what kind of model we use? Here, there are two things. One, customer is given all the requirements. Second is customer is ensuring us that no changes in requirements will be taken place. Now, what kind of model we use? The kind of methodology or a model we use is called waterfall model. Am I right? Waterfall.
yes, correct.
Right? So why waterfall?
The previous.
Previous basic model, right? Which
Previous.
normally
Yeah,
even
basic.
even now also we are using it, right? So waterfall, V model, OJSAP, right? Those are all we are using. So why are we using these models? Because customer is ensuring you no changes in requirements taken place, so that you do the analysis first. As a team, I'm saying, Shivpriya, not as a developer.
Okay.
As a team,
Yeah.
you guys do the analysis. After that, you guys do the planning and design. You guys do the development, testing, deployment, delivery, and maintenance. This is the structure you follow one after another. So no matter how much time will it be taken, because you have already agreed on the terms and conditions in terms of the timeline with the people, you're going further. Now, next question is, let's say customer is very particular about uh, delivery of the project where he want it in bits and pieces. For example, customer want you to deliver project in bits and pieces. Means customer wants whatever is required for the customer. It's not only whatever the requirement. For example, customer came to you and he asked that how much time will it be taken for you to complete. Now you said that it takes, you guys have told by understanding the requirements and all, you guys have told that it is taking somewhere around 6 months to 8 months time for you to complete, for example. Okay, roughly speaking, 6 to 8 months you said. Now customer is asking you to deliver the project in 3 months. Is it possible?
Some part of the requirement.
Is it possible to deliver you the project complete or not in 3 months?
No, it's not possible.
Not possible. Okay. Then what is that we do? What is that we do next? Next, we ask the customer, okay, in 3 months, if you are expecting me to develop and complete all the project, as it is involved with the human intervention and the technology, it is not possible in 3 months. So what can be what can be our approach? We can give a possibility to the customer in such a way, okay, do one thing, whatever you want, you please tell us no, let us know before. So whatever you require, that piece of work will be developed by our team and we deliver it to them accordingly. Am I right or no? This is where generally we come to an understanding. Am I right? Yes, sir.
Yes.
This is where generally we call it as agile. What is that are we going to use in present days is called agile model. Agile model is this.
Yes.
Understood or not? Right? Agile model. So it's not only about the expertise what we have. Of course, expertise is important. Next, understanding the requirements which are in detail is important. Apart from all that, if you want to create a technical roadmap or if you want to develop an application, it is always important for us to understand what kind of methodology is something suitable and something can be successful. Because suitability we have to see the success also. So what kind of methodology is required? Is it a waterfall model kind of or V model kind of? Or else is it an agile, 100% agile kind of model is something suitable? Or is it something suitable by combining both waterfall and as well as agile, both combined can be used? So this is where generally we have to take decision. Understood? Clear? Sure, clear. Right? So when it comes to the patterns of service-oriented architecture, it's not only about the people, it's not only about the process, it's not only about the platform, but it is also important for us to understand about the practice, right? So what kind of best practice methodologies are we going to follow whenever you are working on service-oriented architecture is something essentially important whenever we are implementing all these in the web services. Clear to you now? Understood?
Yeah, yes.
Understood or not? Right?
Yes, right.
Now, next point about what are the roles then? Because we have discussed about why service-oriented architecture and for what reason are we using service-oriented architecture and what are the patterns which are involved in it. That's what we have discussed. Now, we need to discuss about what are the roles in service-oriented architecture when we are building blocks. Now, please write down roles in service-oriented architecture. Please make a note of it. You have asked me for a running notes, right? Please write down.
Yes.
So roles in service-oriented architecture in building blocks. As follows. The first one. The first one is called service provider. You can write a detailed part under service provider later. Okay. First of all, you write down these three roles. One is service provider. Second is service broker. Third is service requester. Service provider, service broker, service requester. Right? Now, what exactly service provider do? Write down under service provider. This role, service provider, I mean to say, right? This role means service provider. This role works in conjunction with service registry. Works in conjunction with service registry. Followed by that, it also debates. Followed by that, it also debates why and how the services these services being offered. Why and how the services being offered. So what kind of services are these? It can be security, right? Services means what kind of services it can, right? So as an example, I'm giving security. It can be a security. It can be an availability, etc. Understood, right? Next point. Under service provider one. Okay. Please write down under service provider. This role will also determine the service category. This role will also determine the service category. And if there need to be any trading agreements. The role determines the service category. And if there need to be any trading agreements. This is where generally service provider come into picture. Understood? Following you?
Yeah.
Sure, Priya, right?
Yes.
Second point, service broker. This role makes information regarding the services available to those who requested it. And also the scope of the broker is to determine by who even it implements. Now, third one, service requester. This role locates entries in the broker registry. And then binds them to the service provider and then binds them to the service provider, comma, continuation, but, comma, continuation, but sometimes it may not access multiple services, hence it depends on the capability of the service requester. Capability of the service requester. Understood? Right? Understood or not? Sure, Priya.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
so
yes,
these are
understood.
the roles which are involved under service-oriented architecture building blocks. One is service provider, who makes information
Service.
regarding services available. At the same time, service broker, right? So, service broker makes information available regarding availability of services. When it comes to the provider, where it works in the conjunction with service registry, all that. At the same time, when it comes to the service requester, who locates the entries in the broker registry and then binds all these into the service provider. So these are the three different roles we see when it comes to the service-oriented architecture building blocks. Clear? Right.
Yeah.
Now we need to
Yes.
discuss about service-oriented